All right, BMA, today is Tuesday, September 1st. Welcome to the Dog Walk, presented by Barstool Sports. As always, I'm across from Chief. Chief, how we doing today? And September 1, man.
Football's in the air.
Yeah.
So it's been a weird year, obviously, but at least we're into September. This is my favorite season. We're going to have football.
Chief season.
This is Chief season. We're going to put on that puffy vest, a little flannel. It's going to be great.
You got apple picking plans yet or no?
I mean, my weekends, thanks to college football dicking around, are almost exclusively open for apple picking. Maybe a pumpkin patch, too. We're going to go wild.
Do you look forward to the pumpkin patch and apple picking?
I mean, this is like slander. That's what this is. I understand why it would be, why it would fit my brand, but no, I don't enjoy walking around a fucking pumpkin patch looking for the perfect pumpkin. I did do the. There's usually one over by Goose Island where they have like a pop-up pumpkin patch and they have like carnival games and stuff like that. It's like made for Instagram. I have done that before.
Of course you have.
Yeah.
Of course you have.
Yeah.
But anyways, interesting topic today.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of just, I don't want to say cautionary tale, but kind of a cautionary tale.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
I don't know how to peg it because my brain it's either like a genius marketing plan that is like on the conspiratorial end, or it's the most beneficial fuck up that ever happened.
Yeah, the greatest fire alarm pull mankind has ever seen.
Of all time.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a little conspiracy mixed in there as well. Today we're talking about New Coke.
And I feel like many listeners probably don't even know what it is.
Yeah, no, they probably don't. Probably.
Do you remember it?
Well, I will say this.
Mm-hmm.
Many listeners, one of the most popular shows, I believe, in streaming is Stranger Things.
Okay.
And they had New Coke as like a thing in the last season.
Yep.
With Mrs. Wheeler and shit like that.
Yeah.
So I would say most people's introduction to New Coke is probably through Stranger Things.
Yeah, because it was
possibly.
They changed. It went from New Coke to Coke 2, and then they discontinued Coke 2 in 2002. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering, how many people actually have heard of it, tried it, all of that, because it did kind of take the nation by storm. And then, like you said, yeah, that's a good point about Stranger Things. It was kind of reintroduced there.
Mm-hmm. And maybe, listen, people are going to be like, "What are you going to tell me about Coke and what fucking a new flavor, a new formulation?
Mm-hmm.
What's the big deal about it?" And I think this is why.
Well, yeah, like we could just get into it. I mean, Coke is like, I don't know, in terms of iconic brands around the world, top 2, top 3. It's probably at this point like McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Nike. As like if you're just gonna like close your eyes and think of like what are the biggest brands in the world, it's got like Coca-Cola is in the discussion for sure.
Definitely.
So they've been around for forever. It was actually introduced initially in 1886, so over 100 years old. It's like as old as America, basically. Not actually, but it feels like that. Like it's Coca-Cola in America. They go hand in hand. This guy like John Pemberton from Georgia created it, and I guess like at that time there was a local prohibition, so he was like trying to come up with a way to like have something replace booze and beer, and he came up with Coca-Cola, and he like framed it as like this magical elixir product. And it became wildly popular and swept the nation and swept the world. And like I said, I want to say it was in like 1902, something like that. They made the last formula change. So it was basically the recipe for making Coca-Cola was largely unchanged for about 100 years until Coke decided to do New Coke.
In like year 99, they're like, what? Let's switch things up.
Like we haven't done anything to this since we removed cocaine from it. Let's try something new. Because that was in the original formula too. I feel like people know that, but there was like not even just like, a little dab of cocaine. No, it was like a lot. Legit cocaine. A lot, to the point that it was like people were like addicted, and it was like being blamed on like radical behavior of certain segments of the population.
I think that's fair, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're putting a lot of cocaine.
People are going to get addicted to it. It's funny how that works. Like, I love this shit.
In beverages, yeah, for sure. So, all right, let's get to that point now. Mm-hmm. It's about year 99.
Yep.
Mid-'80s, I believe, right?
The day that they officially rolled it out was April 23rd, 1985. 1985. So, yeah, like you said, 1886 to 1985, basically 100 years, 99 years. Mm-hmm. And, they didn't do it at least on the surface, like on a whim. You know, like they've been having this thing, it's been working. Now they were kind of tracking poorly against growth from Pepsi. You know, they saw that their sales were declining quite a bit. They started kicking around this idea, like maybe people just prefer the taste of Pepsi. They also launched Diet Coke, which became the third best-selling soda in the country. So if you have Coke and Pepsi, and then the third one is Diet Coke. So in terms of like highest selling brands, and like that formulation for Diet Coke was probably more similar to Pepsi, and people were like going nuts over it. So they're like, man, like Diet Coke is even cutting into our regular Coke sales, and we're still losing out to Pepsi. Like maybe it's just our formula. Like people just genuinely like the taste of these other ones better. So they started to come up with a new formula, and they started doing all these taste tests. Now there is one conspiracy out there that says that the reason Coca-Cola wanted to introduce this new, I guess it would almost be a sweeter flavor, was because they wanted to switch from sugar to high fructose corn syrup. Well, that change had already happened. So they allowed, like, they have like franchisees that do the bottling. Then there's something called Coca-Cola Incorporated, CCE, out of Atlanta. And so they started allowing their bottlers to do this with like the high fructose corn syrup in the early 80s.
Because it was cheaper, right?
Significantly cheaper than
using real
granulated cane sugar. Yeah. So,
and it should be mentioned as well that Pepsi was only beating them in the supermarkets.
Well, supermarkets and C-stores, so convenience stores.
Okay,
so
yeah.
It's basically anywhere where the consumer had a choice. Like you see a shelf with Coke and a shelf with Pepsi. More times than not,
people were buying Pepsi.
People were buying Pepsi. And the reason, you could almost argue that Coke's sales were artificially inflated because they dominated the rest of the marketplace, meaning like they had big time contracts with restaurants like McDonald's and, you know, Wendy's and like all of these
movie theaters, shit like that.
Yeah, all that shit was all, and like even just other just like chain restaurants, like it was just all Coca-Cola product. And so they, you know, what was the old no Pepsi Coke, like the old SNL skit, like that's what they, you know, like, so that was like in restaurants, that was a big thing. And that's still like, that model still kind of applies today, where if you look at energy drinks, like if you're stopping at a convenience store, you've got a gazillion choices in energy drinks that you can have. You go to the bar, you have one. You're having a Red Bull vodka, okay, and that's because Red Bull just has a stranglehold on that entire side of the business. So that's it. And when it's in convenience stores, Monster, Rockstar, some of these other ones went out. In the bar, don't even think about it. Like Monster can't penetrate that scene. It's a Red Bull vodka, and it was the same type of situation. With you're going to a restaurant, you get Coke, you go to the gas station, maybe you get a Pepsi.
And the crazy thing is that, and also I believe Cherry Coke was out too, so that was cutting into the margins a little bit. They were more worried. Listen, they basically had three players on the floor. Pepsi had one at the time, and they were still just worried about the main guy, you know, Coke being knocked down by Pepsi, that Pepsi was going to be able to say, hey, did you know that Pepsi sells more than Coke? When I was like, okay, but if you add all of our three fucking guys on the floor in a vacuum, like, we're still way ahead of you.
Still way ahead, but like it was going in the wrong direction.
Yes,
going in the wrong direction for a while. So it was conceivable that they would have been like, we're losing, you know, we're going to be second in market share to Pepsi if things continue. So they like panicked, and they're like, maybe we should just come up with a new flavor, and you know, we'll do the, you know, the corn syrup's already in there. We don't give a fuck about that. But like, maybe let's come up with a sweeter version, more similar to Pepsi, and even more similar to a Diet Coke, which had like aspartame and these other artificial sweeteners in there. And they began to run like these massive taste test surveys. And so they would have like, you know, individuals come in and do it, and then they would do it in like a group where it's like, you know, you pass around Dixie cups and you do kind of like, here, try this one, try that one, try Diet Coke, try Pepsi, but like blind taste tests. And all the time people were taking Pepsi, and then when it was Pepsi, you know, or if it was Pepsi or Coke, people would take Pepsi on a blind taste test. If it was Coke or New Coke, almost universally people taking the New Coke. So it was like, hey, like maybe we are actually onto something here. And they decided to eventually, like they were having like these surveys and all this, and they eventually decided like, hey, like we're gonna do this. So it was all in secret, like all the new formulations, all that shit was in secret, and then they had a big marketing push to be like, we're changing everything. 99 years of one thing, we're switching it up. New Coke, here it is. They made the cans that say New Coke, the marketing things. You know, Bill Cosby was out there. Also, maybe not the best marketing ploy, but at the time, like Bill Cosby was, you know, fucking huge.
Big timer.
Big time guy. And so they put all this money into this launch of New Coke. And it was wildly successful. You had a bit of a panic from people who were like, hey, like I like the old Coke. So they went out to the grocery store.
Was wildly successful?
I would say.
Okay, so right out of the gate.
Right, sales went through the roof. So on both old Coke and New Coke. So people were panicking. Like, I'm not going to be able to have my Coca-Cola. Like, I love Coca-Cola. What the fuck are you doing? Don't change it. So they went out to the grocery stores and like would clean them out. Like, give me all your Coca-Cola classic, like the old kind, the original. And then you had a lot of people going in and being like, what is this new shit? I'm going to, there's like the novelty attached. And they would go in and like bought the shit out of the new stuff. So Coke was just flying off the shelves, both new and old. And there began to have like this backlash of people who loved the old Coke, rather, the original formula, being like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like,
what's going on?
What is going on? Like, I've been drinking Coca-Cola my entire life, and now I got to drink something that's just like Pepsi. Like, where is my Coca-Cola? And there was even a guy who was suing Coca-Cola to have the original formula released to, like, he wanted to have the rights or somebody else have the rights to bottle the original formula so it could just be out there under a different name. But it's like, hey, this is the real Coke. Obviously, like, that guy lost. That guy, as a stunt, even did a blind taste test of Coke versus New Coke and chose New Coke. So even the guy who was suing them because he loved the original Coca-Cola so much, in a blind taste test,
he lost.
So like that was pretty crazy. And they were doing these surveys in these focus group studies, being like, before they did this launch, saying would you buy this if it was labeled Coca-Cola? And most of the people said yes, but then there was roughly 10% of the people were like, fuck no, and would get angry about it, even if they had chosen, like, this is such like an iconic thing, like, don't fuck with it.
Don't fuck with it. Well, We'll get to that 10% in a second here.
Mm-hmm.
Before we do, though, I want to talk about JP Graziano's. They pair great with a Coke. They would pair great with New Coke, I'm sure, too.
Yep.
I mean, I think JP would pair well with a nice little scoop of water from Lake Michigan. Like, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It's so good. Like, the bread's so good. Like, the sandwiches are so good. And sometimes, like, having a little splash of something, even as Coke, or like after that hot, you almost require it, right? Like,
yes.
You need, like, oh, that tastes so good, but you got to wash it down before you go for your next bite. So, yeah, JP Graziano's has it all. And you said it's September 1. This, to me, is primetime sandwich season. Like, you're back to school. Remember when you were like this time of year? It's like maybe you didn't have a sandwich all summer, but now you start packing your lunch again. Imagine showing up to school you unwrap a JP Graziano's. You're the king of the school.
You're the king of the school. You're right. It's not too early to put in your sandwich orders for the first week of NFL football.
People don't realize how soon it's coming. You better get those orders in now because they're going to be flooded.
It's coming fast. So go over there, jpgraziano.com, put an order, put in a catering tray, whatever you got to do. Put an order for the peppers. Go do it, jpgraziano.com. 901 West Randolph. Go check out that walk-up window. They'll be there for you when you need them. JP Graziano's, go do it. Okay, so that 10%.
Yeah. So even in the focus groups, like the 10%, even if they had chosen the new Coke flavor, they're like, hey, like, don't call this Coca-Cola if it's not Coca-Cola. Like, Coca-Cola is Coca-Cola, nothing else. And so they would, and then even if there was a focus group, the 10% who were angry would be like advocating and trying to convince other people in the group to like go to their side. So the 10% were very, very passionate about the brand and the formula and everything it meant, even if they, in that setting preferred the taste of New Coke.
Big time.
Yeah.
And it should be mentioned, they did think about not doing this marketing campaign.
Mm-hmm.
They thought, well, what if we did just swap it out?
Yep.
Would people know? They figured a lot of people wouldn't know. But the people did find out, much like this 10%, they would be such a loud minority barking up the tree that it would have caused a bigger problem.
A bigger problem, and like almost like an admission, like, hey, like our old flavor sucked. You know,
Yes.
so if you're and people don't. I think people in general are suckers for the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think if people were like, hey, like you changed your whole thing and just didn't tell anybody, like you just tried to pass this off as the same thing when it's clearly not. Like that, it's not even that people would be angry. It'd be like, you lied to us.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, you know, like that's a lie.
Yes.
And even if you like the new taste better, it's like, hey, like what the fuck? Like why would you try to do that? So they weighed both options before they eventually were like, let's just roll it out as a whole new thing.
Yep. So they do that,
Mm-hmm.
and then from these taste tests, I guess the 10% is what really knocks which sounds so small. 10%.
But it's like, think about how just the way of the world is. It's like the angriest, loudest people, even if they are on the fringes of an argument, they cause enough problems that it's just they dominate the conversation. So, and like I said, you had the one guy trying to sue them. You had a lot of people who were upset, and that was it. So that whole thing where they were going to have the new Coke be the only Coke, that lasted 3 months. 3 months. And so I think end of April to the end of July, and then Coca-Cola announced that like, hey, like we're going to relaunch the original Coca-Cola, and we're going to start calling it Coca-Cola Classic. Because that's how upset people were. And you know what happened?
What?
Sales went through the fucking roof again.
Now, did they dip it at a point in here in 3 months where that also factored into it? Because if sales are through the roof still, why would they budge?
Why? That's a great question. But I think they saw the people who were angry, and they saw the way that the Coke, call it Coke Classic, before the official relaunch was still, because people were trying to scoop it up before it was gone forever. Like that, the sales were on all their brands were just up because like new Coke was up, old Coke was up, and then they decided to, in a short period of time, be like, hey, we're gonna have new Coke, and we're also gonna continue to make Coca-Cola Classic. And in a 6-month time frame, after they reintroduced Coca-Cola Classic, sales for both new Coke and
Coca-Cola Classic
doubled the rate of sales for Pepsi. So you went from being like, hey, we're losing market share, all over the place, to Pepsi, to now it's like we have new Coke, Coke Classic, and Diet Coke are just kicking the teeth in of Pepsi.
Now you got to be pulling your fucking hair out if you're at Pepsi right now.
Oh,
right?
you're like, what can you do? Like you probably I bet you when that ad campaign and they made like the big announcement to their shareholders and everything in April that they're gonna unveil this new formula, I bet you Pepsi took like a little bit of a victory lap. We're so in their heads that they don't know what to do. They're changing their thing that they've had for 100 fucking years. They probably thought they had them. They probably thought they were going to eclipse them. And then it's like, wait a second. Everybody's buying Coke. Wait a second. Everybody's buying new Coke. Everybody's buying Coke Classic. We're getting fucking smoked here. And then, people started thinking of like, what the fuck? Like now it's like, this is where we get into the conspiracy thing. And was this just the plan all along? Was this just like some giant marketing ploy? Because prior to that, they had been, Coca-Cola had been marketing themselves as a less sweet version of Pepsi. Like Pepsi's too sweet. And Pepsi was just killing them, especially with younger people. So now Coke, like they were able to do the new thing, and then they're also able to have the nostalgia play. And it was like, could this just be like a way to get people to jump ship, like to just come back to Coke, and then you just stick with Coke forever? And it does kind of look that way.
Sure. I could definitely see that, right?
Yeah, I could. I mean, like, and we were talking about this before a little bit. So prior to working for Barstool, I worked in the beverage industry on the packaging side. Coca-Cola doesn't do anything quickly. Okay. So maybe things have changed. Maybe they're a little bit more nimble back in the 80s. But like the Coca-Cola that I know from like a professional level, they just like, it's such this giant, big corporate machine. So anytime they want to do anything, it's like years of like feasibility studies and this and that, and has to be approved by so many people. Then it goes up to the board, and it's like what you pitch is no longer like what they initially agreed to. So you have to go back to drawing. But it's just like, they're just like an impossible company to deal with because they have so many people at the top. They have shareholders. They have a million partners. It's just part of being in the corporate machine, and they're as big as they come, and it's just hard to get things done, and they're known for that. So
I think they learned a great lesson in 1985.
Probably.
Think about it. They're probably fucking, scarred from that in a sense.
Yeah,
even though it worked out, it
worked out better unless this was their plan the whole time.
Yeah.
Because my point is like, I don't think that they would just be able to have like a unanimous approval to abandon their product. Like, I just think that that's crazy. So it's almost like, hey, like we actually have this better plan. We'll say that we're getting rid of it, and then we're going to bring back our other one, and people are going to remember, and they're going to buy everything, and then like we'll just phase out new Coke. We'll call it Coke 2 and just stick it on the shelf forever.
And that shit works too. And I know it was a different scenario because Hostess actually, I believe, did go out of business, and then someone bought them and kind of repackaged it.
Yeah.
But for people that weren't alive then and are alive now, it was hysteria. There were people saving Twinkies, selling on eBay for $100. It was wild.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was wild. So it does kind of work. It does work.
The other thing that people were saying is that one of the reasons why some of the, because it was universal seemingly with these taste tests that people would always take the new Coke or take Pepsi over the original Coca-Cola. And both of those were formulated to be a little bit sweeter. But it might have been like a flawed study because, like I said, they're passing around like these little sips in like Dixie cups. So if you have one sip, you might like the sweeter one. You have 12 or 20 ounces of something, and it's like, holy shit, like this is way too sweet.
Good point.
So it's like maybe it was like a flawed study to begin with, and people actually really did like Coca-Cola Classic all along, and Pepsi was just doing a better job at marketing back then.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, this is not the same time, but I kind of remember, other than like the Coca-Cola Bears at Christmas, I feel like I remember more Pepsi ads. Like I remember the Sidney Crawford like driving up on Britney Spears. Like they've seems like Pepsi has always been more on like the cutting edge on that side.
That was a big one.
That was a big one too. Yeah. So maybe
it's fucking the Bears and Santa.
That's it. They own Christmas. Coca-Cola owns Christmas for sure, more than even Jesus. But they have but that could have been just the reason. So it's like, hey, maybe that's just like they're beating us in marketing and our flavor's fine. And I think that was maybe something that they realized through this experiment, or maybe it was on purpose and they just wanted people to remember again, like, hey, Coke's fucking awesome. I prefer Coke to Pepsi if I had to choose.
You do?
Yeah.
I like them both. I'm in a weird, I like where it's like you kind of prefer one here, one there.
I say that I like Coke better, but I wonder if you gave me like a blind taste test, if I could pass. It might just be like, that's just my brain, or I just like that logo. I just, have that nostalgia just somewhere in my brain that I just like Coca-Cola better.
I mean, it's that. Do you think Coke's going anywhere?
What do you mean?
Like, do you worry? Obviously, that's the attack against the sugar industry, which obviously fucking horrible for you. But
yeah, I think that Coca-Cola has been way out in front of this kind of movement. So yeah, like their sales of Coke products and kind of full sugar, call them CSDs, carbonated sugar beverage, something like that, just a sugar drink. They've been declining year over year, and like that's not a Coke problem. That's like an industry problem. So Coke kind of recognized that, and they started like this. It's Coca-Cola Ventures. I might have the name wrong. My memory's a little fuzzy, but they started investing in all sorts of beverages that were healthier. Like they bought into Honest Tea, the energy drink category is still booming. They bought a giant share of Monster, which I think maybe Monster's bought some of it back. But yeah, they know, like I think everybody knows, like the we could do an episode on sugar too, by the way, because that's a fucking crazy story.
They got our guys Body Armor.
They got
yes, I believe, right? I'm pretty sure
they might. Yeah, but we love Body Armor.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know if they do or not, but they did. I think Coca-Cola also did vitamin water at some point. So I know Ripoli's involved with both of those historically. So they definitely knew that or tried to anticipate. So they diversified. So there were other times in history where this industry was in trouble. Specifically, I don't know if people know about this. Pepsi tried to sell their business to Coca-Cola 3 different times. So in like the 20s, and then like during the Great Depression, I think 30s, and maybe the last time was in 1940, something like that. And Coca-Cola every time was just like, nah, we're good. Fuck you guys. Like, we don't want to buy you.
I always love those blockbuster Netflix kind of stories.
Yeah, and this is just like that.
That's
so
nice.
Back then, the cans, or like the sodas, were sold in 6.5 ounce bottles. So they were just like, man, like, we're just getting crushed. Like, we should just start giving away our product. We'll just start giving it away. And they're like, nah, let's not do that. Let's put it in a 12-ounce bottle. We can kind of say that we're giving it away, but we'll still sell it for a nickel, which is the same price as Coke at 6.5 ounces. We'll sell 12 for 6.5. Our margins will be razor thin, but people are getting more for that same nickel, so they'll buy it. And they did. And that kind of saved their business. Yeah.
That's a good fact.
There you go.
It's just hard for me to, like, you're right, year over year, down, but it's hard for me to ever imagine, as long as McDonald's is around.
True.
People will be drinking that fucking Coke from McDonald's.
Yeah, and there is something like that. McDonald's Coke hits different.
It's crazy.
It is, yeah.
I don't know what they do.
I think it's something about the syrup and the water that, because it just comes in big bags of syrup. From my days as working at Jimmy John's, like, you used to have to replace that little fountain soda thing. It was a syrup, and then it had like a separate feed for the water. You press the button, they merge all at once, and it just makes magic happen.
People claim that there's like a special recipe for McDonald's only, but I don't know.
It seems like, I feel like that's something we would know.
But listen, you said three companies at the start of the show: McDonald's, Coke, and Nike.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was two companies that could shake hands, be like, hey, this is the deal. This is for both of us.
Yeah,
it's them.
And Coca-Cola is notoriously secretive too. Like, I think the original recipe that we've been talking about all day is still not really known.
Yeah.
In terms of like what they're putting in, what the flavoring is, and all of that. So maybe they do. Maybe they do have a different recipe with Coke.
Interesting, man. So I don't know. You tell us. Was it a genius marketing ploy? Was it an ultimate fuck up that worked out? I don't know.
My gut, because if you're gonna like make the switch on a mass production level, like, that takes a lot of planning. Like, you have to buy all the supplies. You have to, like, when you go to bottle it, you have to block off time. You have to clean all the lines out. So make sure, like, whatever flavoring is running in through there before, that all has to have like a thorough cleaning process. Like, I don't think that they would have set this in motion just to reverse course 3 months later, unless they always kind of knew. I kind of think they're geniuses.
Yeah.
And there was like a big, whoa, what are we doing? No, we're the king. And this is just a way to like boost sales quickly in 85.
There you go. That's a conspiracy. I feel like we haven't, the last one was Avril, that we didn't buy in on.
Yeah.
We have a confirmed conspiracy that Chief buys in on.
I think I just think it would be, because think of all the ingredients you still have to buy to do the old formulation. Like, that takes a lot of time. That's a lot of purchasing power. Now, Coke can do it because they got the deepest wallets and, like, they're first in line for everything because they buy so much. But if you're making that switch, like, there are ingredients that would have to be switched, that would have to be bought way far in advance. So just to be able to say, hey, 3 months later we're going back, I don't buy it. I think that they knew. There
you go. And if someone there knows, they're not going to speak because, like you said, they're they're pretty tight-lipped over there.
We'll change your voice. If you have inside information on this, we'll change your voice. Come on the podcast.
Or Rapoli, help us out. Get us, someone that knows something,
he probably
right?
knows, yeah.
All right, everybody. That's it. New Coke. Thanks, Chief. We will see you all tomorrow.